All right, welcome to today's World Explained. So, it's Monday, March 23rd, 2026, and the entire global news cycle just got turned on its head by one single unexpected social media post. Let's get right into it. Just completely out of the blue, President Trump drops this bombshell. After weeks of things getting more and more tense, this post signals this dramatic, hairpin turn in U.S. policy with Iran. A 5-day pause. And you gotta focus on those two words he used, productive talks. The big question, though, did they actually happen? Okay, and this is where things get, well, really confusing. You've got two stories that are polar opposites. The White House is saying, yes, talks happened, a deal's been made. At the exact same time, Iranian state media is saying absolutely not. No direct talks, no deal. So what's the real story here? Is this a legit breakthrough, or are we watching some kind of high-stakes geopolitical bluff? To try and make sense of all this, we're going to follow the ripple effects. First, we'll look at the ceasefire gamble itself. Then, we'll see how the entire region is reacting, because it's tense. After that, we'll jump into the wild ride happening in the global economy. And finally, we'll cover some other really critical stories that are unfolding around the world. So, to really get a handle on this ceasefire gamble, you have to look at the most immediate fallout. And that's a whole region now balanced on a knife's edge. This sudden blast of uncertainty is creating both huge dangers and maybe some opportunities for the major players over there. Yeah, this instability is basically hitting the accelerator on everything. We're hearing reports that Israel is using this moment to try and aggressively redraw its security map. Meanwhile, in Iran, this whole crisis is just pouring fuel on the fire of this power struggle over who will eventually succeed the supreme leader. And in Saudi Arabia, the threat level is still so high that the U.S. Embassy has actually ordered its staff to shelter in place. Okay, so let's shift gears. We're moving from the war rooms to the trading floors. Because, a geopolitical chess match like this, it hits the global economy and it hits it fast. So, what's the first thing that happens? Bam. Oil prices take a nosedive. Just the idea of de-escalation, the possibility that we might avoid a full-blown energy crisis in the Gulf, that was enough for the world to breathe a little easier. And you can see it right there in the price of crude oil. And that's just one side of the coin. Because while oil was sliding, you know what was happening to the markets? They were soaring. Look at that. U.S. equity futures, the Dow Jones, both shot up on the news. I mean, if there's one thing Wall Street loves, it's a bit of certainty. And even a tiny hint that a wider war might be off the table, that's all it took to kick off a massive rally. But hold on, it's not all sunshine and rallies. Even with all this optimism in the markets, analysts are waving a big red flag about this problem that just won't go away: sticky inflation. So yeah, energy prices might be cooling off for a minute, but the cost of services? That's not coming down nearly as fast, and that is a huge headache for the economy. And if you zoom out even further, you see these two wildly different economic tales playing out in Asia. I mean, check this out. Over in Japan, you've got companies looking at the biggest pay raise for workers in 35 years. That's a huge deal in their long fight against deflation. But then you look at China, and it's a crisis in the complete opposite direction. There's such a massive oversupply of pork that prices have totally collapsed to a 15-year low. It's so bad the government's got to step in. Okay, obviously the whole Iran situation was the headline grabber, but it wasn't the only thing going on in the world today. So let's catch you up on some other critical stories that you really need to know about. Right, back here in the States, a few pretty big things happened. First up, the Senate confirmed Markwayne Mullin as the new head of Homeland Security. Then there's this new and pretty controversial policy that's put ICE agents in 14 major airports, and that has sparked a lot of protests. And in a move that's got the political world talking, President Trump is apparently going to skip CPAC this year. That's the first time he's done that in a decade. Switching gears to the environment, some really sobering news came out of a summit in Brazil today. Just look at this. Almost half, 49% of all migratory species on our planet are in decline. That's wow. It's a massive warning sign about the health of our world. But it's not all bad news. In fact, there's some absolutely incredible news coming out of the world of science. Researchers have developed a brand new blood test for tuberculosis. Now, here's why this is such a game changer. For the first time, this test can tell the difference between an active infection and a latent one, someone who has the bacteria but isn't sick. This could totally revolutionize how we treat and prevent TB in places where it's a huge problem, like India and Pakistan. Okay, for our last story today, I gotta give you a quick legal term, but stick with me because it's important. The word is certiorari. It sounds complicated, but all it really means is that the Supreme Court has officially agreed to hear a case. And, well, they just agreed to hear a really, really big one. The case is Boulder versus Exxon, and the core question here could literally rewrite the rules on climate change lawsuits for generations. The court is going to decide if fossil fuel companies can be sued under state laws for their role in, well, global climate change. I mean, no matter how they rule, the outcome here is going to be absolutely monumental. And that really brings us full circle, doesn't it? It leaves us with this massive question that kind of hangs over everything we talked about today, from the conflicts over oil in the Middle East to the courtrooms here at home deciding who's liable for a warming planet. You know, when the consequences of all our actions, political, economic, environmental, finally come knocking, who's actually responsible? And who ultimately ends up paying the price?